Okay, you were with us and you wouldn't regret. Oh, we have Alan Bleiweiss. Alan Bleiweiss, I arguably consider the best auditor in the industry. Okay, Alan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Anton. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, great. We have Alan, and I don't want to eat out of his presentation. So, Alan, it's all yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Anton. I greatly appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I know some of you may be up late at night at this point because you're all around the world. It's an honor to be here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen now and start my presentation. All right, so today I want to talk about data that we use in SEO. How to identify the data that you need, how to evaluate that data to make it worth the time and effort that it takes to be able to make good decisions for SEO. Just a little bit about a background about myself. I've been in the internet marketing industry for 21 years. I've been doing SEO for about 16 with web development, management, and overall marketing for internet marketing solutions for clients around the world throughout that time. Okay, we need more data. Yay, all right. The biggest challenge that we have in SEO is being able to make wise decisions, smart decisions, not just about being able to keep up with Google or to stay ahead of Google, but how to be able to get the most value out of our web presence. So data is central to that. The challenge is how much data is enough and when is it too much? It becomes out of control. In order to decide which data you need and how much data is going to be right for your situation, you need to set up a plan in order to at least have a foundational understanding of the right data to get and what to do with it. That's going to change over time, but you start with a plan, and it's a straightforward plan. You define your goals, you decide what metrics or what numbers to look at that can help you understand how to reach those goals and whether you're moving closer to your goals or further away from them. You need to decide which tools and resources that you're going to make use of. There are so many tools out there for us in this industry. It's a blessing to be able to have as many tools as we have. But in order to even begin to decide which tools to use, we need to know what data we want, right? Because some tools are going to offer certain types of data and not other types of data. Once you set up those tools, you're going to need to define what to look at within that, how frequently, and when it's appropriate to look at other data throughout the year that you might not look at on a regular basis. You need to go ahead and implement the tool process to start gathering the data. You might need to have custom work done in order to be able to pull that data together into a usable form for yourselves. Then during the implementation cycle, which is ongoing, you're going to need to review that from time to time to decide whether you're getting enough data now that you're actually working with it, or if you need more, or if something changes within the business model that requires new information. You might need clarity for certain goals, so you're going to need to review this from time to time and make adjustments along the way and refine. So define your goals. This is the most important process, obviously, and every website is going to have its own goals. There are going to be common goals that most websites care about, but there's going to be uniqueness, right? And it's not just about the person who's responsible for managing the SEO strategy. This is about the fact that there's people who are in charge of sales and they're going to want data that they think is relevant to them, so they're going to need to work with you. You're going to need to make sure you coordinate with them. There are marketing campaigns that take place outside the world of SEO, so there's data needs for those people who are responsible for those campaigns, but where their campaigns can impact your SEO, right? Whatever the particular goals are of the business, of the web presence, these are going to define the type and kind of data that you need and under what circumstance. But data isn't just data. There's many different ways to look at data. So you need to then take the time for each type of data that you think you need or that somebody else in the organization needs. How do we look at that data? What do we do for comparison purposes? Is this a comparison week to week, or is this a comparison year over year, right? Maybe there's a campaign that was just done this week in social media. It's helpful to look at your SEO data to see if that social campaign lifted your organic search traffic, because that happens quite often. If you have a really strong social campaign, people will learn about the business, learn about the website. They might even come to the website, but then quite often a lot of people don't bookmark the website. And later on that day or that week, they're going to want to look for that content again. And many of those people actually do go to Google and Bing to do a search on the words that they remember reading the most, either in the social campaign or on the website itself. And you can quite often see an increase in organic traffic after a successful social campaign. There's a similar scenario with paid advertising and email campaigns and other paid media, right? So all of these are things to consider when you're planning the kind of data to get and what to look for under what circumstances, and how to look at that data in different ways. So how much is enough data? At a certain point, it just becomes too overwhelming, right? But if you don't get enough data up front, you're potentially going to be missing critical information that could really have a direct impact on the decisions that you make, or that other people in your organization or third-party vendors provide to you. So you need to be aware that there's a review process early on that needs to take place, especially not just 3 months or 6 months from now. Don't wait very long before you really pause to think more thoroughly about whether the data that you've got now is in fact enough. There are many different metrics that you can get. I'm only going to present a sampling of them today. Not all of these are applicable for every site owner or manager, but this is what I find for the majority of my clients. The numbers that are most helpful for most ongoing decisions. We can go very deep into the number of different data points and the kinds of data that you can gather that is a standard type of data, right? And again, it's not just about the organic search. It's what else is happening with this web presence or with this brand online elsewhere. These things do matter, and we need to monitor them. Then we can get granular. We can go much deeper. Let's say you found in your regular data that you were seeing weakness in page speeds. Some pages are taking 20, 30, 40 seconds to load, and that's not good because we know that harms SEO. Well, in that case, you can then come back, even if you don't look at this on a regular basis, you can take a one-time or a less frequent look at deeper data. And then you can go even further with the more advanced and complex data that's available under certain tools, with certain tools, to really get a much better understanding to help you make more granular decisions. There's going to be opportunities that you can improve visibility, you can improve click-through rates, right? And as a result, again, more advanced data, which won't necessarily be something you look at all the time. And I encourage you to not get lost in trying to look at too much data on a regular basis. Split it out. What can I look at on a regular basis just to keep an eye on the health of the website and on the ongoing work? But what do I need to stop once in a while and go further with? When we're looking at strategic SEO, it's not as helpful to look at competitor data or new marketing opportunities or new market opportunities, but from time to time, and especially when we're talking about tactical work, absolutely. Look at some competitor data, look at those new opportunities to say, okay, we've done great for the last 6 months, where else can we focus? So a typical basic data point is search rankings. Search rankings are less valuable today than they were years ago because more long-tail search takes place, right? Instead of a 1 or 2 word search, more people are using 2, 3, 5, or 8 words to describe what they're looking at. And even if your website only has hundreds of pages, there could be thousands of phrases that your site ranks for. So we don't want to get lost in having to look at your rankings every day, but it can help keep an eye on what's going on with the website. However, there's more value in ranking data when we dig deeper, and this is a great example. So it's not just where do we rank, but how many people are clicking on that link when it shows up at the number 1 or number 2 position. Now, I happen to know that if you're in the number 1 position, there is no single standard click-through rate percentage that you should expect every time. There's a lot of different factors that go into that reality, not just in general, but also from site to site, industry to industry, phrase to phrase. But from time to time, it's really helpful to say, hey, you know what? We should be seeing 20 or 30 or 40% click-through rate in the number 1 position. For these phrases, we're seeing a 5 or 10 or 12 or 15% click-through rate. Why is that happening? That's an opportunity to not focus on going after new visibility, but taking advantage of the visibility we already have and actually saying, if we improve these page titles and these meta descriptions, we might be able to increase the number of people who click on those rankings that we already have. Great opportunity to use advanced data to get more visitors to your site without having to go after new visibility. Basic data. Now this is year over year, looking at the number of sessions, number of new users. Oh great, all of that work we did for the last year really had a positive impact. That's really helpful to see. But we can, at times, we can go even further and we can break that down deeper. In this case, there was 159% improvement in mobile sessions and 187% of the improvement for new users. That's huge. But for desktop visitors, it was down 13% for the same period. That's a really scary problem. Now, part of that might be because people stopped using desktop and they went to mobile, but that may not be the case. It's important to be able to look at more advanced data sometimes, and when you see a number like this, then you might need to dig even deeper and even get even more data to try to understand this that much further. So sometimes it becomes a rabbit hole scenario. Something catches your attention in the data and you need to get better understanding, you're going to need to get more advanced data. Just one example of granular data here. We can look at those mobile devices, and this is a different site, but it's the same concept, right? So for non-mobile visitors, they get 62% of the page views and they took an action 72% of the time. Fair bounce rate, really strong page depth, 34 pages, that's a lot, right? And the donation participation is 83%. But look at what happens when we look at the mobile devices for this website. 16% of the page views were for Apple iPhone, but only 9.9% of those people took a particular action and only 5.6 donated. So that's a red flag. And that's why I put these in spreadsheets. I take the data from the different tool providers that I have, and I import them into spreadsheets, right? So I can look at one spreadsheet with multiple tabs. And then I can highlight the problem areas and the success areas, which is really helpful for me, but it's just as helpful when I go to make a presentation to the marketing team or the CEO of one of my clients, right? Or the web developers, and I can say, hey, we have serious problems here. Well, in this case, because it's pretty standard for most mobile devices that the numbers are really weak, that could be a user experience problem. So I can use this data to get the web designer to be more motivated sometimes to working with me to make improvements. Basic data for page speeds. So this is using web page test. It's one of my favorite tools for testing speeds. I can see from different locations, different pages, what the page speed is. Well, if I see there's really slow speeds, I want to dig deeper. Well, in web page test, I can break out individual pages and I can see much more granular information about where there might be delays. The first byte time, the render, how long it took just to render the beginning of the page, and then the full load, right? Well, that's helpful, but for speeds, in web page test, I can go to the details report and I can look at one individual page and I can see line by line by line, row by row, each element at the code level in that one test, how long it took just to do the DNS lookup for that one element, how much time it took for the first byte, total content, how big is that file, right? This allows me to be able to work with web developers to make improvements in page speed at the granular level. So this isn't something that I want to look at every day, but when I see in the basic data that there's speed problems, I can come to web page test or another tool and I can get much more detailed information to help begin to resolve these. Tools and resources, which ones do you use? All of the logos that I have on the screen right now are just a sampling of the different tools that I use in my audit work. Some tools are going to provide the same information as other tools, so you don't necessarily need to use multiple tools for that data. But sometimes two different tools are going to give you a different view of one piece of data, so you can look at it from two different angles. In other cases, one tool is going to provide a particular type of data that another tool won't, right? So for Google Analytics, I think that's important that every site should have that because they give access to information that Omniture and Web Trends and other analytics tools don't have, right? And one example is the actual speed for users who visit the website. And only Google Analytics gives you the accurate information that you need because it's based on your real site visitors and it's the data that Google uses to make decisions about ranking due to page speed problems, right? But Omniture can be customized to give you much more granular views of other data, right? So take the time to look at all the different tools that are out there. You might need to explore them. If you're happy with a certain tool right now, you don't necessarily need to abandon it, but I encourage you to once in a while, once or twice a year maybe, look at other tools that might offer similar data or different data that you're not getting now. So you need to define those monitoring standards. How long is it going to be about, right? How often do you want to check? Well, I don't need to check keyword rankings every single day. I know some people who do. It's not very helpful because day to day things are going to go up and they're going to go down. I care about the trends for rankings and only for a certain portion of those rankings. So I don't want to look at it as frequently and I don't want to look at every keyword that we might rank for, right? This is part of the planning process. And again, in the ongoing work, you're going to need to reassess what you're looking at, how often you look at it. Under what circumstances do you look at it? How do you do comparisons? Right, there's strategic and then there's tactical needs. Strategic needs are the bigger picture. It's the 30,000 foot view. You're looking for patterns, positive or negative, from a sampling of information, and you need less data to do that. Tactically, you want to dive in deeper for any one signal. So in that scenario, yeah, you're going to need more data and you're going to need to spend more time looking at different data for tactical work, because this is where you really roll your sleeves up and get to work on any one individual goal. If you're not sure what you're doing in getting it set up, you need to coordinate with web developers or tool providers, or go to your peer community and say, hey, I want to use this new tool. How do we get this implemented on the website? There's a lot of great resources for helping you to get it implemented. Don't think that you have to do it all on your own. Work with the developers, seek help. I'm never an island unto myself in anything that I do in this industry, and especially when it comes to implementation, because if you implement improperly, you're not going to get the right data. This is why testing after you implement is critical. Once you've implemented a new tool, make sure it was implemented properly. And don't just think that instantly overnight you're going to get all of the data that you need from that new tool. Sometimes it takes time to accumulate data before that tool can work properly, or before you can begin to see what's really going on. Don't think that you can just walk away after you set up your tools. You're going to need to make adjustments and refinements along the way, as I said previously. It's really important to take that time. Like I said, once or twice a year at a minimum. I prefer quarterly. If you can have the time to do so, make adjustments so that you can get better at what you're doing, because you have better data understanding. And don't be afraid to refine where you're getting your data. Throw a tool out if it's no longer providing you the value that you need. Or if you found another tool, because 6 months after you use this one tool, somebody said, hey, you got to try this other tool out. If it turns out that the other tool is just as helpful or more helpful, that's a good thing. So be willing to make adjustments. You need to ask the hard questions about whether the data is the right data, whether it's providing you the best information, right? So in summary, there you go. Good luck. It's a mess out there. No, seriously. In summary, you want to determine which tools and resources are most likely to provide you the insights and knowledge you need, but you can only do that after you define your goals, right? You want to evaluate that data in order to help increase the ability to make better decisions. Always be willing to reevaluate. And if you get stuck with any of your tool decisions, I don't have all the answers, but I know a lot of people who have other answers or have more expertise for certain tools. Don't hesitate to reach out to me on Twitter. I'd be happy to answer your questions when I can. And that's it. Thanks.
Stop sharing.
I'm stopping my screen sharing
yes,
right now.
Yes, please, so we can see you. Okay, thank you very much. I was very interesting, and as usual, very technical. And as usual, you put a lot of on a speed side of the story. Why is it's always like that? I've heard you a few times, and I really remember mostly, because I'm not SEO, you know, I'm not technical SEO. Speed is important and everything. It's
yeah. Well, it's because of two things. One, we know for a fact that Google does not want those pages being served to their searchers, and if two sites are equal, except one is faster than the other, they're more likely to show that faster site higher up in the rankings. Okay, and there's a threshold for that. It's not where one site is 1 second and another site is 2 seconds. If one site is 3 seconds and another one is 30 seconds for a page to load,
yeah,
that's
I would be
deal,
annoyed
right?
to wait for 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. But we know it's important to Google because this is why they came out with AMP, the accelerated mobile pages, yes? People weren't doing enough to speed up their websites. Google was tired of it. They came up with the AMP project. It's not an ideal solution. I don't like it for many reasons, but we can no longer ignore it. And it's one way to help improve speeds, but you shouldn't just rely on AMP because Google is just one search engine, and because it's only for mobile, and because if you implement AMP, it strips out functionality you may need. But yeah, speed matters because of that reason. And ultimately what it comes down to is user experience. There's a lot of case studies that show that if a site is too slow, people are going to abandon the website.
We have a question from public server health. What exactly do you mean by this? Health of a server?
The health of your web server, yeah. Right? So what I'm talking about there are several different areas that your web server could have problems. And one of them is speed related. If it takes too long for your server to process the page requests, that's going to slow the speed down. Speed is not just an issue because of big file sizes, right? If the server is slow, it's going to take longer for that file to load. If the server is slow, it's going to take longer for the search engine bots, the crawlers, to crawl your site. If it's too slow, the search bots will abandon the crawl.
So basically,
right? So these are just a couple of examples of health at the server.
But basically, it's all about speed of a server, isn't it? Or it's something else?
Well, it's not all about
something else, because it was follow-up question from the same. What's besides the speeds? What else?
Right. Well, there's malware. There's hacks, right? There's viruses that get installed, and these show up in Google Search Console, for example, right? So if you have Google Search Console as one of your tools, if their system detects malware, you'll know about it. That's another example.
Yeah. Okay, great. Before that, we have a presentation on artificial intelligence. Anyway, artificial intelligence affect everything you said today about SEO and everything?
Artificial intelligence is a fascinating topic, just in general, right? But when it comes to SEO, artificial intelligence is something that we cannot intentionally try to manipulate, okay? Artificial intelligence puts more emphasis on the need for us to write content that's naturally communicated, okay? Because there is improvement with artificial intelligence in how web content is understood. So that's an example where you do need to care about artificial intelligence, but only because it emphasizes what should have been a best practice all along, and that's writing to speak to human beings, right? How do you answer questions? Yes, this is the knowledge graph, right? In Google, as an example, like somebody does a search in Google and they ask a question, they don't just get links to websites anymore. Sometimes answers are right there.
Very convenient.
Artificial intelligence is going to help make those connections stronger, right? So write your content to properly answer those questions if you want to show up for that type of result.
Yeah, I guess it's all we have time for today, but I understand people can reach you over your Twitter. Twitter is the best way to reach you? I'm pretty sure,
yeah, Twitter is the best.
You're very busy, but Twitter is the best.
No. Yeah, Twitter is the best way to reach me, and we can start conversations there. And if we need to get into deeper conversations, we could go to Skype potentially, or email, right? Or I can refer people to other tools or other resources or other content, other answers that are already online, or other experts, because I'm not an expert in everything.
Okay, guys, use Twitter to approach Alan, but make sure the question is intelligent, because it's only me. I have a license to ask stupid questions here. Okay. Thank you very much, Alan, and it's all we have time for today. Thank you very much. I hope we'll see you again. Thank you for this. Thank you, and good.
And thank you again for having me, Anton. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Goodbye.